Welcome to Your Family's Health, the program that focuses on healthcare issues with unique and different modalities for taking charge of your health today. Experts talk weekly with our continuing roster of guests from around the country and right here in Nassau County to keep you up to date on the latest health issues and trends. Take care of your mind, body, and soul. Spend the next half hour with the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and get on the journey to better health.
Hello and welcome to Your Family's Health. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College. And today we're talking about a center that helps patients with Alzheimer's and dementia right here on Long Island. Our guest today is Tori Cohen, Executive Director at the Long Island Alzheimer's and Dementia Center in Westbury. Tori joined the Long Island Alzheimer's and Dementia Center team in 2003 as a social worker. Then in 2015 was appointed Executive Director. So welcome, Tori, to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on the show today.
You're welcome. So first, tell us more about you and give us a little bit about your experience, your personal story, and how that connects to Alzheimer's dementia.
In the end of I'm a licensed certified social worker, and I've been working with the geriatric population for a while. I had been working in Boston at a mental health clinic. I had been at a dialysis unit. I then had moved to New York and worked for NYU Medical Center, where I had a lot of direct contact with the geriatric population and involved in discharge planning, where when people are coming into the hospital and then the next plan of what do they do afterwards. So many had come in with certain diagnoses, and then even in the midst of being at the hospital, they would realize, oh, I may have a cognitive issue, maybe it's Alzheimer's dementia, and they're leaving with this diagnosis, and where would they go? So that had led me to really becoming passionate about this disease. It had becoming more and more prevalent in the United States, and then especially here on Long Island. And so when I had moved out to Long Island and ended up deciding to join the Long Island Alzheimer's Foundation, what it was formerly called before it was the Long Island Alzheimer's and Dementia Center, I really wanted to help with this disease. I have it in my family. My grandmother had been diagnosed with it, so I had a lot of direct contact of what it meant to deal with this disease on an everyday basis. So it really touched me, and I became very passionate about the part of there needs to be hands-on programs and services for this disease. We need to have research, but we also need to be in the here and now.
So if you had to describe Long Island Alzheimer's and Dementia Center there in Westbury, what would be, if you would just give us a brief, how would you address the needs of these patients, this population, and specifically?
Well, our center here in Westbury, we are helping the individuals that have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's and dementia and their caregivers. So our broad range of services and programs are directly helping both the individual and their family member. So it's the entire family is being focused on. And so in our center here in Westbury, we do have a day program that runs 6 days a week, but we also have a lot of different services that go on at the same time, and services that are outside of the center as well.
So can you describe some of the services that you provide for this population?
Yes. So our day program that's located in the center runs Monday through Saturday. And this really focuses on the individuals who have Alzheimer's and disease, but in the end, it's giving their loved ones respite while they're here. On Saturdays, we do have programs that the caregivers can join as well at the same time. We have a chorus. We sometimes have a movie program. So there's certain times that certain caregivers may not want the respite, but they want to be with their loved one. So really, in the end, this disease isn't something that ends during the week. We know it's something that is a 24/7 progressive illness, so that we're trying to meet the needs for the families every day. We also have transportation that takes our participants back and forth from their homes. We have dementia-trained drivers that drive the bus and the van, so that's another much-needed service and respite for the families. We also have support groups that are run by a licensed social worker that help the caregivers. We have individual groups for the spouses, the adult children, and even some people that are in the early stage. And we also have a support group that meets on Saturdays as well. We also, I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I'm sorry. Keep going.
Okay. We also have caregiver trainings. So one of our licensed social workers run caregiver trainings for any caregiver that comes to our center or even in the community that's interested in knowing about specific topics that are related to this disease. We have a lot of community organizations that come in and speak about different topics that they're working with. And also we have something that's called an in-home respite program that's outside of our center where our trained employees go to the home 2 hours every other week to be able to provide cognitive stimulation in the home, and their caregivers get respite as well. They can either stay at home or leave for the 2 hours. So sometimes, with this disease, we always say we want people to be as stimulated and as busy as they can be and socialize, but sometimes there are people that just want to be home or not able to leave the house, and we can be able to provide services there. So we're really trying to tailor our programs to what everybody's needs are.
So what does the day program consist of? So if once the individual gets there to the day program, what does it look like?
So we're able to serve people from the early stages of the disease to the end, which is a very important piece for our center because not all the centers in Long Island have that. So once someone walks in, they'll be able to take the entire journey with us, regardless of how long the disease takes. The day starts at 10 o'clock and they're coming in, sitting in their specific rooms to do with their distinct stages and start having programming through the day. One of the big highlights for the day program is we have a lunch program that just started this year where they get free lunches from a local restaurant. And this also gives the caregiver respite so they're not making meals every day. And we have a presenter that comes every day, which a lot of times it's music, but it could also be it could be yoga, it could be on a specific topic, but that's a really big highlight of the program because all of our participants really look forward to their day when at 12:30 to 1:30 we have someone come in. And then by 2 o'clock, most of our participants do go home, but we also have extended hours till 3:30 if someone needs some more care and wants to stay a little bit longer.
So this is not really a stay overnight facility. It's just a day facility that you provide from Monday through Saturday.
Absolutely. Everyone that ends up coming here during the week will then return home after the program's over.
Could you tell us a little bit about the difference between Alzheimer's, dementia? How do you determine the two or the difference in the two? And is that important to do when you admit a person to your program? Tell us how that you make that distinction.
Well, one of the biggest things that actually happened this year is that we changed our name in October to the Long Island Alzheimer's and Dementia Center because we did want the public to understand that it's not just Alzheimer's that we serve people that have dementia. Alzheimer's is just a specific form of dementia. Yes. There are many, many different forms of dementia, and Alzheimer's is just one of them. So really when someone calls or comes to our center to ask what program they could be involved in, there's a thorough interview and intake where we gather a lot of information, where most of the individuals that come to the center, even for an intake, already have a diagnosis of either Alzheimer's or dementia. And everyone really, I think from the entire time that I've been working here since 2003, I don't think I've met one individual that just looks like the other that, oh yeah, that's exactly what this person had. Everyone has some kind of different symptom, but the fact is that all of it comes under the umbrella of dementia.
So if you have someone coming in with early stages dementia versus late stage dementia as Alzheimer's, are they cohorted together, or are there particular rooms that you put early stage dementia patients in versus advanced stage?
Good question. I mean, we have three distinct rooms in the front part of our center where we place the individuals in the different stages. Sometimes there are people that might be in the earlier stage that find someone they like and they want to end up venturing into another room, but we try to separate as best as we can in what their capabilities are, because we really focus on what people can do productively and try and promote as much independence. But it's really in the sense that people have these distinct rooms, and then when we go into a larger room for the presenter, which I had said earlier, of like music or exercise, everyone joins together. So they're all end up for at least an hour being together and joining in.
So you mentioned that the meals were donated from or by restaurants in the area?
Our meals come from a local restaurant. Mm-hmm. We had gotten specifically a grant from MassBeth Bank this past year that would be able to give us the meals for free. Mm-hmm. And then also most recently with Nassau County as part of our contract with them. So it just happens to be that a local restaurant is able to cater in the food for us, so it comes hot. It's only 5 minutes away, and all portion sizes, everything that comes on those specific days are all meant for this population. And then people have dietary restrictions or needs or allergies, it's all worked out before the meal gets here.
So if the patient or resident, I don't know if you call them patient or resident?
A participant, but that's a good question too. Yep.
Okay. If the participant comes in and has a need for a different kind of diet, like a mechanical or soft diet because they have problems with swallowing or aspirating, do you tailor the meals, or is that done on the grounds?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that the restaurant, he'll know what he needs to do for specific people, but there's, in the sense yet where people are coming in and this is a new program, the fact of if there's problems with the aspiration and having to have the food really, like we say, more mechanical, then we can work sort of within the organization and figure that out, because we really have a lot of our staff in each of the rooms. We have to have a certain ratio of staff, and they're all sort of monitoring what people's capabilities are and what they need, and if they need extra help, and if they need their meal tailored differently. Mm-hmm.
So what kind of staff? You mentioned staff that are there in the facility. Are they registered nurses, or are they registered dietitians? What is the...
Yep. We are a social model day program. We do not have to have medical staff here. We have 4 licensed social workers on staff. We also have staff, program assistants that are working and facilitating the programs in the day program. We do have a home health aide on staff, which is very helpful to help people in and out of the bathroom. We do not have any medical staff here on site. We do have people that come in from a specific organization that do physical therapy on site. And we've had occupational therapy on site. And just adding to our programs, too, I hadn't mentioned that we do have pet therapy and art therapy and music therapy.
Yeah, I was thinking about the pet therapy. There's a lot of studies and research that shows that pet therapy is very therapeutic for those that have dementia or Alzheimer's type of dementia. So tell me about the support groups that you provide for the family. I know that people who have loved ones who have Alzheimer's dementia are challenged on so many levels. Tell me about the support group services that you provide for families.
Yeah, so with our support groups that are facilitated by our licensed social worker and are on specific days, and we do try to separate the needs of what a spouse wants to talk about, what an adult child, and that's why we have separate groups for them, because it's really important that people come to these groups to be able to get advice and support, because a lot of times they're talking within their families and they're only able to say so much without hurting people's feelings or letting people know that they're concerned. It's really a good opportunity to have an hour worth of time that it's just counseling, and that when you're walking, this journey, that there are other people that are walking this journey along with you. So someone might be a little bit ahead in the disease, and they'd be able to offer things that offer advice to things that have happened to them, and that is helpful to the other person, and just knowing what possibly could be ahead or what's in the future. And there's a lot of resources that are gained there. So it's a really, to me, important tool at our center that people really, really do need. And even if you don't come to our center, you could still come to our support groups.
Mm-hmm. And the support groups are ran by licensed professionals?
Yes,
okay.
Licensed social worker, which definitely, there are a lot of support groups in the area, but with ours, they are run by a licensed social worker.
And is this on a daily basis, or is this like once a week, or?
The groups mostly run one time a week. It's really the needs of what the group wants, because sometimes there are people that join these groups that, aren't able to come that often, but, would like it one time a month. But recently we have made them one time a week with each individual specific group. Like I say, the adult children meet one time a week, or the spouses, or even our Saturday, because we have a lot of adult children that are working during the week and can't make it during the week. So, we do feel like it's important to just monitor what that group needs. So if they want it a little bit more often, then we can try to pivot and adjust to what they want.
Can you explain what the memory cafes are?
Absolutely. So we started the memory cafes that are sponsored by different organizations, because again, we're talking about a lot of programs where it might be separate for the person that's diagnosed, and there's things for the caregivers, but this Memory Cafe is for the caregiver and their loved one to be able to come to a local restaurant, informally sit down with other caregivers and be able to talk and have conversation while there's also music. And
that's wonderful.
And lunch. Yeah. And people really like it, because for a lot of people that are scared, because this disease is a lot of times people are really still feeling stigmatized, that it's a good opportunity to not be in our center yet, but just trying to get adjusted to the staff or what other, people are doing in the community. And
it sounds like more of a casual setting, than that typical, round circle therapy session, that you're able to go to a local restaurant and kind of talk with music and sort of a little low key. So I like that idea.
Yeah, you know what? And it's nice because it ends up to be that if someone wasn't ready or wanting a support group, that they are getting some advice and help from some other caregivers that they meet. And we've had a bunch of caregivers that have really become very good friends from that type of setting, even gone on vacation together. So they could continue to do what they had done in their life, but maybe do it together where they feel like more secure and supported.
And I would imagine that they made friends, at these, when you have these kind of support groups, that you become, friends because of the experience, of dealing with someone that has dementia, Alzheimer's. Yeah.
Absolutely. I always say there was a sign that we had in our organization in Port Washington that said, you walk in as strangers and then you become friends. And that's really how it's been for a lot of groups, because, like you say, they never knew what was going to happen in their life. No one ever said they had a rule, book of how to deal with this disease, and really being able to have others to support them is really important.
So are the costs of the program covered by insurance, or is this basically out of pocket?
The cost can be covered by certain insurances. And, as we always say with each individual, once they come in to have their first intake, it gets discussed with the social worker on how to proceed and how we can help them pay for the programs.
Are you finding that your participants are from the Nassau County area, or do you take participants from Suffolk and the tri-state area, or, the Manhattan and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of our participants and families are from Nassau County, but we have had many people come from Suffolk County and people that have come from Queens, like more eastern Queens and western Suffolk, because the idea is that there's still not that many social model day programs around that are helping with the beginning stages to the end and have our types of services. So if they need them, then they really feel like, well, I'm just going to come. And we are very accessible because we're right on Old Country Road and very accessible to the parkways and highways.
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College. And today we're talking to Tori Cohen, Executive Director of the Long Island Alzheimer's and Dementia Center in Westbury. So that's very interesting, Tori. Can you just let us know, there's some new recent things that you added to the future or possible future things that you're going to do as a part of the program there?
Yes.
What are they?
In the sense of the programs that we had spoke about in the beginning of the show, what we're going to be adding in the future is one of the services going to be counseling services. So we talked about support groups, and we do get a lot of phone calls that come in from families or even people that are diagnosed that want more time with our social workers on the phone to be able to speak more and get more advice and counseling. So we're going to be actually adding counseling services to our programs and services in the next few months, where people can come in individually, have a 45-minute session with one of our licensed certified social workers, and be able to have their time that they need to get their needs met of whatever issues that they're dealing with. Because the biggest part of this disease and what we worry about the most is a lot of caregiver burnout. We're helping the person that's diagnosed, but the caregiver is mostly neglecting what they need to do for themselves. So we're finding a lot about that. So that is one thing that's exciting that we're going to be offering. And also, we always say when you start to meet more people and what they need, that, our day program services from the early to the later stages of the disease, but there's a lot of people that are being diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment or really early in the disease. And if they're not ready for our day program, we're going to be starting something called Train Your Brain on a weekly basis. So eventually, if things end up progressing, that they can end up transitioning into our day program and feel comfortable about it. But right now, while they're in those really, really early stages, they can join another program that best fits their needs.
So you've been working with this program since 2003, and now you're executive director. Have you seen over the years more of a need for these kinds of programs in the community, or has it for you always been about the same in terms of the population demand for these kinds of supportive programs?
Well, definitely am seeing that this disease is becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, there's 57,000 individuals living in Long Island with Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. But within the years, the fact is that people really want to age in place and stay in the community as long as they can before they go to a facility. So what I think is most important about programs like ours is that someone doesn't need to be sitting in their house and not getting services. They could be coming to a program like ours 6 days a week and promoting their independence, focusing on what they can do. Just because you got diagnosed doesn't mean that there's not a life worth living afterwards. It's not over. We don't really know how long the disease could last. Everyone's different. I've seen people that get diagnosed and they're here for 4 years or they're here for 8 years. You really have no clue, because I feel the most important part is that we continue with the research to try and find a cure. But right now, I feel like the most important is helping the families and individuals here and now.
What would you say is like the average age? I'm sure it's the older adult that you're dealing with, but do you see any younger population coming in?
Yeah, I was going to say, we definitely, I would say the average age of our participants, like late 70s. But then on the other hand, we have a group of people that are been coming here lately that are being diagnosed much earlier, more mid-50s.
Wow.
Yes, and I think that's really tough for the families, especially people that young and having children that are at a certain age and having to tend to all of those needs amongst their loved one who's diagnosed.
So the psychological counseling that you offer is just not the child who is older. It can also be young children who need that psychological support. Would you say?
Absolutely. We had an adult child that came here recently for an intake, that she's a teacher in a local school, and her mother had passed away, and she has been taking care of her dad. And this was, one of her last stops before, saying, I don't want to have to put him in a home, but can he fit into the program? And she's like, I just need to be able to do my job without worrying about him.
Yeah.
And it's very tough.
So I know that a lot of people have experienced parents or loved ones that have Alzheimer's dementia and can offer some of their service, having experienced maybe experiential knowledge. Can a person come in and volunteer their experience and services to this program?
Yeah, we love volunteers, people that, have been close to the disease and want to come and help in a few different ways. They can help out in our day program and working with our participants. They can come and do administrative tasks, answering the phone, helping with mailings. Mm-hmm. We have 3 signature events that help with our fundraising efforts here that people can volunteer at. We have a women's luncheon that happens on April 24th this year at North Hempstead Country Club. We have a golf outing that's June 29th at Sands Point Country Club. And then we have a casino event that happens in November of this year. So in the midst of some of our events, there's a lot of volunteer help that's needed, and also just being on committees. And for us also just spreading the word about our program and for people to really understand and know that we're here for the individuals and the families to help. And that's our mission. We want to be able to improve the lives.
So how can friends or family members get in contact with you? What is your best way to reach out to you?
Best way is to either by the phone, which is 516-767-6856, or on our website, www.lidementia.org. And both ways you can get in contact with us, and we'll be able to help in any way we can.
Now, one of the things that I know that is very commonly talked about is, how do I deal with my loved one that has dementia, Alzheimer's? Just some practical tips that makes life easier for just day-to-day life with taking care of patients with Alzheimer's dementia. Can you give us a little bit of some tips?
Yes, I definitely can give you some tips. I mean, I think, a couple thoughts is that the one part of when someone is diagnosed, we have to start looking, even though they're our loved one, differently. So every, behavior that we think that we're been used to with living with them or knowing them is going to be changed. So one thing I always say is that a lot of times with this disease, there's a lot of repetition. Mm-hmm. And, you have to kind of go along with it to a certain way. And if at one point you can redirect the conversation, change the subject, that's another easy way of changing the conversation. The fact is that, a lot of times people just need to take a little bit of time, and, when people's short-term memory is what goes fast, the long-term memory stays in place for a very long time, is to be able to reorient people as best as we can. If we want to put up calendars in the house, little pieces of paper to remind them what's the day, what's happening next, so people feel like they're connected. Because, as we say, when someone's affected by this disease, their brain is starting to atrophy, and we need to be able to help them with all of this thinking that they used to have, and a lot of times people's judgment start to become impaired, and we have to be able to help them and guide them to safe environments and how to manage even in their own household. And someone might really forget how to get to the bedroom. And I mean, this was something, a house they've been in forever, but, like I say, signs in the house, removing things that could be unsafe in the house too, that they won't trip over or fall.
So that sounds like safety is a big part of it.
Yep. So
if you had to leave any parting thought in like one sentence, what would you leave the listeners with?
I feel like this is a disease that people struggle with and feel lost by, and we're an organization that's grassroots located in Westbury that we can help right now. Until there's a cure, we're definitely the best solution to finding hope and support.
Well, thank you so much, Tori Cohen, for being with us today, Executive Director of the Long Island Alzheimer's and Dementia Center here in Westbury. This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the Nursing Department here at Nassau Community College, and we want to thank you for listening to this week's edition of Your Family's Health.
We'd like to get your feedback on your family's health. Send your comments by emailing them to WHPC@ncc.edu. Podcasts of today's show are available on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This program was produced at the studios of Nassau Community College in cooperation with the Nursing Department. Join us next week for another edition of Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.